You're welcome back. You're watching Situation Room, coming to you live from our studio here in Accra. Situation Room, as you know, we talk politics. And as you're aware, the new patriotic party, the opposition NPP, yesterday held a National Council meeting and the National Executive Committee with one agenda, just to look at the report of the Professor Michael Oquaye committee that was set up some months ago to investigate the outcome of the NPP's poor performance in the 2024 general election. Professor Michael Oquaye and some 10 other members of the committee yesterday presented their report to the National Council and National Executives, made some few recommendations as the party also prepares for the 2028 election. There are proposals for constitutional amendment to some portions of the NPP's constitution. Today on the Situation Room, we'll tell you some of these proposals on the table and the key findings in the Professor Michael Oquaye report that was presented to the National Council of the party. And as usual, I'm here with Fred Tete Jabano, my friend, my brother, and my colleague. Fred, what's up?
Sammy, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm well. God is still keeping us. God is still keeping us.
Sammy, I was listening to you, and all what was going through my mind was the restructuring has begun.
Oh,
you know,
yes. Oh, yes.
Anytime a party goes
into
loses
an
opposition,
election.
the next thing is to restructure. So the restructuring has begun. And you know, every party and how they want to restructure.
Yeah.
Even though the differences, there are not too many differences. Usually a committee will be set up. When the committee is done, the national executive and committee, functional or national council will meet. Then they decide to present their report and they put the report in their pocket. And when you want to see, they'll open the thing, they'll just show you bits and pieces of it. And it's the same thing which is happening.
Yeah.
Right? Like you rightly said, NPP has started quickly. The Michael Oquaye committee finally presented their committee report to the leadership of the party, and now decisions would have to be taken. Sammy, you have been in and out following this particular story. I would want us to start first with the amendment. I know everybody wants to know what's in the Oquaye report, but before then, the General Secretary of the party also wrote to NEC and the Council of the Party, National Council of the Party, making some proposed amendments. These proposed amendments came from different members of the parties which have been put together and presented to Council. Let's first find out, what are these amendments? What do the party members want?
Well, the proposals are quite a number of them. And I will take you back to 2021. Remember when the party went to conference in Kumasi, there were several proposals for amendments, but that could not be done because there was anticipation preparation for the 2024 election. So these proposals were not adopted. That committee was led by current minority leader Alexander Apenyomakin, who is the minority leader, and he was the chairman of that particular committee. So quite a number of them, but some of them were referred to the National Council, which is the second highest decision-making body of the party, for these amendments to be done. So they were not done. Now there are fresh proposals for possible amendment to the NPP, constitution, and quite a number of them. For instance, what I've heard or what we know, what we are told is that there's a call for expansion of the delegate system. As we speak now, the NPP has a very complex delegate system. We start from the polling station and then up to the national level. So in every polling station, you have 5 people, elected, executives, and then there are electoral area coordinators, and then you have constituency executive, regional executives, and then national. So they make up, the delegate system when it comes to the election of the flag bearer. So this is made up of the delegate system. As at the last, Congress, there were around 200,000. Now the party is seeking to expand this number and make it every card-bearing member of the NPP.
This is interesting.
It is interesting because there was an attempt by the NDC to also do similar. But
Sammy,
it backfired.
the NPP actually started with an increase in numbers of delegates. That's when they moved from the very small number to the 200,000.
That was around 2006. Then the famous Legon Congress, that was around 2,500 people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then after that, they moved it to the over 200 delegates.
Yes.
Right after, the NDC also decided to take a cue from that particular decision of the NDC, of the NPP, and decided to open up for all party card-bearing members to be on it. But it backfired, according to the party.
It backfired. And so those who are also making such proposal to the NPP are also looking at the possibility of ensuring that they do not have aliens, in quote, to also come and join. But then the proposal is that if they have card-bearing members in good standing, then they will be able to go through with this particular system, whereby they can expand it to, like, say, 2 million, 3 million members of the NPP who are card-bearing members. Now, what the party is seeking to cure is the monetarization in the system. There's a belief that the fewer the delegates, the advantage for candidates to influence them with money, even in the parliamentary and the presidential level. So that's what the party is trying to eliminate. So that at least if the college is bigger, you do not have the resources to influence, let's say, 2 million people. So basically, that is the plan.
The party is also talking about early Congress
a
flag bearer. What's the proposal?
So there's also a proposal for early Congress, because the party believes that in the last election, the party was late in electing a flag bearer. Per the NPP constitution now, when the party is in opposition, 2 clear years to elect a flag bearer. But when the party is in power, you have 12 months to the election. There's always the belief that in power, electing a candidate 12 months to the election is too short a time, because the party has to go for Congress, and in Congress there are a lot of misgivings. There are people who are bitter in the rest, so there's no time for the flag bearer to more or less bring peace or bring all the disgruntled members together, and there's no time for campaigning. And so the party wants to have a definite time that if the party is in power, either 2 years or 1 year or whatever, and then in opposition, the time remains same. So they want a definite time.
I have some
whether
questions.
in opposition or whether in power, they want one clear timetable for the election of a flag bearer.
I have some questions there, but I think the Deputy General Secretary would come and
join
answer
us
that. We'll move on to the 4th amendment, which has to do with leadership. Remember, about 2 or 3 weeks ago,
I remember,
we were having a conversation about who is the actual leader of the NPP. This has found its way to the proposals presented to the National Council. What is this proposal about?
Well, there's a belief that as of now, the NPP does not have a leader. In the party's constitution, when he's in opposition, it is the national chairman who is the leader of the party. But there's a belief that the current national chairman is not strong enough to hold the party. And so if you go for early Congress and elect a flag bearer who then becomes the leader of the party will have a strong hold, have a strong footing. As of now, people perceive the minority leader to be the leader of the party now because of his advocacy. So there's a belief that if you go for early Congress and elect a flag bearer early in time, he becomes the leader of the party and can hold the party on and meet the government boot for boot. So there's also a proposal for, who becomes the leader when the party is in opposition or the party is in power. There's a convention in the party now that when the party is in power, the president assumes leadership of the party. But if he's in opposition, it is the national chairman. There's a proposal for a clear definition on that, whether who becomes the leader of the party at all material time, whether in government or in opposition. And then there's also a proposal for a clear-cut relationship between the party and government. One of the misgivings in the Oquaye report is a clear, relationship between government and the party. A lot of people believe that when the government was doing its own thing, the party was also doing its own thing.
The party was left behind.
Left behind and doing this when it comes to campaigning. And so they want a clear definition as to bring in a clear relationship between the party and the government when the party is in power.
It's about managing the relationship between
and the
government
resources.
and party.
Definitely.
Talking about that, we moved to the Oquaye report. The Oquaye report also had some issues, and I'm sure it outlined some of the reasons they believe the party lost the 2024 election the way it lost it. What did the Oquaye report say?
The committee report is not out, but then this is what our sources are telling us from the party headquarters. First of all, they identify economic issues. They say cost of living, the DDP, the e-levy, among others, made the party and the government very unpopular. And so going into the election was going to be something very difficult for the NPP and their candidate. They also said people were just tired about the NPP. They just wanted the NPP to leave. The arrogance and the rest, they just wanted to see the back of the NPP, so the NPP should leave. There was also anger within the party. The Oquaye report says there are some people within the party who felt disgruntled, who had some misgivings and were not happy with the whole setup, and so they just wanted the party to go to opposition. There was also the perceived corruption There was a perception out that the party was, or the government was corrupt, and so giving the party another chance to govern the country again would be too much, and so they just wanted the NPP to leave. And there's also the accusation of Akufo-Addo's governance style and his posturing. If you remember the Oseche Mensah report,
yes,
this featured
from the Ashanti region.
Yes. This featured prominently.
In fact, almost all you said
almost all the
featured
things,
in the
almost
Ashanti
all the
regional
things
report.
featured in the Oseche Mensah report. And so this was also communicated in the Professor Michael Oquaye report. And there's also the party and government failed to communicate its achievement. The party or the government felt that they did enough. They achieved a lot within the last 8 years. But then the communication about this achievement was something limited. Or was something bad, and so the Ghanaian people didn't know how well the government performed as far as the Akufo-Addo government is concerned. So these are some of the findings within the Oquaye report. Even though the report is not public, this is what some of committee members are telling us.
Interesting. Maybe we could get more from the party. We have with us the Deputy General Secretary of the party, Alhaji Haruna Mohammed.
He's the Deputy General in charge of operations.
I mean, he was in charge of the party's operations, which led the party to opposition. We would find out whether what the Oquaye report is saying is actually true from an operational point of view. Alhaji, you're welcome.
Thank you.
We've been having this conversation, and like I mentioned some few minutes ago or some seconds ago, about 3 weeks ago, we had a conversation of leadership where you joined us via Zoom to give us your view on what you thought the party leadership, who takes charge of the party, and whether there was actually a true leader now that you're in opposition. Interestingly enough, this has come up, according to our sources, as part of your proposals. But before we go there, let's go to the Michael Oquaye report. You actually told us that before the Easter, this report will be ready. Yesterday, this report was presented to you. How is the party, you have seen a report, and I'm sure you've gone through the report. How is the party accepting?
But mind you won't tell us the details of the report.
You may never know.
Because they've been told not to speak on it.
You may never know. You may never know. As I said, you remember, we were told that when the NDC report was ready, they put it in their pocket. When you go, then they'll open and show you a little bit. So maybe today he'll do that. But Haruna, can you tell us, yesterday the report was given to you. How did the council take it? How did the party take it? How are you receiving this report?
Thank you very much. I first will say good afternoon to the two of you. I was aback when you were reading from a report that has not been read and trying to pick from a report that is yet even to be discussed as National Council. Yesterday, indeed, we received a report from the very good persons that we formed a committee, an ad hoc committee of National Council, headed by the Right Reverend, the Right Honorable Professor Mike Aaron Oquaye's committee. This report was submitted to National Council, which was the body that set up this particular committee to review, not to investigate.
Okay.
It was for them to review the reasons why the NPP lost the election 2024. There were two terms of reference. The first was to review, and the second was to look at areas of possible amendment and restructuring on the part of the NPP's constitution. So this report was submitted to us yesterday. And as you know, the tradition of the New Patriotic Party, our core values are known. We all know that the NPP is the only political party, a liberal democratic party, a party that is the real consecutive party in Ghana, that we have never changed our form. And we have always maintained one critical thing, that when it comes to facing the issue in reality, we hold to our chests and say boldly that we are the New Patriotic Party and we are the pacesetters of democracy in Ghana. So we were very comfortable based on the ideals of the party, because we know that we lost elections. Something led us to lose the elections. So having commissioned this committee to go into, definitely we are not expecting them to come and give us flowers. We are expecting to receive certain things that may not be very good to us, because if we had done the best, we would have won the elections. So it went wrong for us. So we received the report. They gave us summary of the report by way of presentation, but the entire report was submitted to the leadership of the party. Based on the 2 terms of reference that was presented to them, the party envisaged that because of the 2nd terms of reference, there would be amendments in the party's constitution, because some work has been done, and Sami had made a very fantastic point regarding making reference to the 2021.
Yeah.
You know, the 2021 attempt to amend the constitution in Kumasi was deferred, and a committee was put together, headed by Osahini, the current minority leader, not the leader of the party, the current minority leader, who headed the committee and did justice to the work. This work was put together. The judgment of the Congress then was that the National Council, which is the 2nd highest decision-making body before Congress, should seize the power to sieve and to put this thing together and bring it before Congress for ratification or otherwise. So these motions were put together because every amendment in the party's constitution has to go by way of motion through the General Secretary. So these motions were put together. We did not get the opportunity to go for Congress, and today, the leadership of the party has taken a decision for a Congress to be held in July.
July of this year?
July of this year. So the General Secretary, per Article 19 of the party's constitution, will be issuing another statement calling for people's opinions and recommendations for the amendment of the party's constitution. Despite the fact that we have had two data by way of presentations from Mike Oquaye's committee and also from the 2021, there will still be calling for other informations to be submitted to the committee, the 9-member committee, who will then be assisting the General Secretary, because it is the role of the General Secretary to present this before Congress for ratification or otherwise. So this will be done together so that the party will be able to get the constitution firm up. The aspects of the amendment in Mike Oquaye's committee will be teased out by leadership and put together and given to the Constitutional Amendment Committee, who will then look at it and present it within 3 weeks. So this is where we are. I've heard many say that we are taking a cue from our sisters or our brothers in the NDC.
NDC, yeah.
And we know history cannot be rewritten. In the history of this country, history has always guided all of us. In the beginning of the Fourth Republic, it is only the NPP that began by challenging decisions based on the presidential elections outcome, writing what we call the stolen verdict. The stolen verdict, as we stand now, Sami, maybe you have not seen it. You have not seen the report, you have not seen the report. But the stolen verdict report have helped to shape the election process and transformed the election process in Ghana, even deepening the democratic process. We went through, we came from the opaque ballot system. Recommendations in the stolen verdict helped us as a party to channel our grievances and to follow up through the Electoral Commission to get the opaque ballot box off the way. Through those recommendations, we got the Electoral Commission and the body mandated to carry out elections in Ghana to have a black and white register. We went through that to have a color register. We went through to get a proper ID card system. We went through that to have a biometric system. We went through that to today. We are all knocking our chest to say that Ghana's election process has been transformed. So it is not about seeing the report, but it is about getting those recommendations implemented.
Okay, so the July Congress you mentioned, is that Congress just to do the amendments, or is the Congress to do an election? Which is which? Or is an election to take a decision on the future of the NPP? Just explain to us well.
Yes, the July Congress, we have different congresses. Not all Congress that you go to have elections.
Okay.
There is a Congress you go for elections. There is a Congress you go for reports. And before that particular Congress, constituencies and regions will be going for conferences. Yeah. And then after they finish, all the deliberations that happens in those particular conferences will be brought to national conference.
Okay.
Then, having commissioned this particular committee to also come out with why we lost the elections, definitely there will be discussions in that particular aspect. There will be other matters of the party that will also need Congress approval. So it will also be tabled before Congress for discussion so that Congress can give the go-ahead or defer some of them to other bodies and structures of the party to carry on behalf of Congress. So Congress has a way in terms of what activity is put before Congress, because Congress is the final decision-making body of the party. And in the absence of Congress, the National Council takes over.
So it's safe to say that July Congress is just going to be an amendment of the Constitution based on your delegates.
Not just amendment of the Constitution.
Other matters that will also come up.
That will also come up because in the
like
course,
other matters like
in the course of the running of the party, you know, steering committee is in charge of the day-to-day running on behalf of these bodies. After steering committee does so, National Executive Committee is the next body that takes decisions, perhaps that steering committee cannot take. Then decisions that National Executive Committee cannot also take, then will also go to National Council. There are decisions, many other decisions within the party structure that needs confirmation from or ratification from Congress, which will also be added to Congress for such decisions to be taken.
Before I let you go, the proposals for amendments, you know, I'm sure my producers will put them here, but then for the expansion, I've heard your boss, General Secretary, pushing for some amendments, which I know you also support these amendments. For instance, he's proposing that there should be an expansion of the electoral, you know, system to include former appointees and former party officers. Is that it?
These recommendations that you have here, I believe that these are recommendations that were made prior to the submission of Michael Oquaye's report.
Okay. Yeah.
So probably most of these particular recommendations and those that have been documented and those that have been made by appearance will definitely find their way into the report. As we stand, I have not opened the report to see whether this has been covered or not, but I know that submissions have been made by individuals and other bodies and interest groups to ensure that some of these things are done. The National Council, upon receiving, will take the opportunity to look at the document, and there will be the next National Council meeting that will discuss all these matters in detail so that decisions will be taken for implementation.
But definitely there's going to be constitutional amendments.
Definitely for that one, we are all quite, because it was part of the terms of reference that they should look at possible areas of amendment. And I know people have submitted papers. Others have appeared in person and they have made several positions on some of the clauses and chapters of the party's constitution. And that is why the General Secretary indicated in the release today, where we have Honorable Frank Davis, Lawyer Frank Davis, who is the chairman of the party's Constitutional and Legal Affairs Committee. We also have Honorable Patricia Piaget, who is the deputy leader in Parliament. We have Honorable Kojo Ponkroma, also a lawyer, who is a member of the committee. My colleague, Dr. Antoinette Tubudako, my colleague, Deputy General Secretary, is a member of the committee. Mr. Makafu Wanya, who is a regional chairman, will also be serving on the committee as a member. And Honorable Ebenezer Nate, a former member of Parliament, will also be serving on the committee as a member. We also have Honorable Diana Asonoba Dapa, a former Deputy Attorney General, also on the committee. And then we have Idrisu Muaidin, Idi Muaidin, a former NOX secretary, who is also a member secretary of the committee, and then Dr. Oquaye coming from the youth sector, also represented a member of the committee. And the terms of reference has been given by the General Secretary. And one is for them to identify provisions of the party's constitution that require amendment in order to give effect to the recommendations of the Mike Oquaye Elections Reviews Committee. So definitely there is recommendations in Professor Mike Oquaye for constitutional amendment that I can say for a fact. And also to work on the recommendations of the 2021 Constitutional Review Committee, of which you cited in these particular discussions, chaired by the Osahini Honorable Alexander Afenyo Markin, and also to receive proposals for constitutional amendment from party members and identifiable groups.
So, Aruna, just so I'll be clear, so it means that in the amendment, the Afenyo Markin Committee and the proposals that will come, you combine both.
Yes.
And then do these amendments.
All will become input to what this committee will present. Then we'll combine all, whichever comes from which angle. We are combining all by way of motions to conference.
The accusation is that in Kumasi you couldn't do. What's the possibility that you could do it this time around?
What we are going to do is that, you know, the 2021 own is done.
Yeah.
There's the possibility that recommendations that will come now, some of them will find their way in the 2021.
Okay.
Because this is the same constitution. It is not a different constitution. And there's also the probability that the recommendations that are found in Mike Oquaye's committee and proposals that will be made by members of the party could also be from the 2021, because they are the same people, the same constitution. So there's that particular possibility. So I don't think that is going to be, and learning from the 2021, we don't want to have the same experience. So we will be very meticulous in dealing with these matters in terms of submission and timing, so that at least conference will look at it holistically, so that we'll have it done once and for all.
Haruna, thank you very much. You have a question?
Yes, before you go, outside the constitutional amendments and everything, we know your party is under restructuring. Are there timelines to ensure that you bring this restructuring to an end?
Yes, as part of the restructuring, this review committee was one of the setbacks to the review, to the restructuring of the party. And when we talk about restructuring, it's not like an overhaul. It is about us taking certain decisions at some points in time to reshape the direction of the party. So we would be looking at the conduct of elections for leadership across all the structures of the party. So we would be putting up a timetable for these elections to be done. And there is that school of thought of mentioning about the leader of the party. It is never in ambiguity. The leader of the party in opposition is the national chairman. The leader of the party in government is the national chairman. What people are proposing is that there is no word in the constitution that said leader. But the constitutional provisions on who the national chairman is always the leader anytime in government and in opposition. It is never in ambiguity. But people are making proposals that it should be very specific because there has been conventions. The constitution is superior to convention. So a convention cannot override the constitutional provision. So it is clear that we have a leader, but people may want to have some specification in the constitution so that clear definitions can be given. But it has never been in ambiguity that the national chairman is always the leader of the party.
All right. Haruna, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time.
Haruna
Mohammed is the Deputy General Secretary in charge of operations for the New Patriotic Party, speaking to us about the Professor Michael Oquaye Committee report and also proposals for constitutional amendment. Just teasing out some information on that from him. We'll go for a quick break. When we come back, we'll speak to Musa Dankwa. He's done some work about the removal of the Chief Justice and if Ghanaians support the removal of the fourth most powerful person in the country.
excellent. Be that business owner that stands out and is very productive.
You're so confident. How do you do it?
It starts with Build. Where does your confidence come from? Paperwork made simple. Build takes all the hassle away. Yeah, don't be like her. Build is your all-in-one simplified finance platform. It's your home for invoices, payments, your payroll, and so much more.
Oh, wow.
Grow your business today. Sign up now at build.africa. Download the Build app now.
International Ministries presents Harvest Praise 2025, the Koinonia Edition, ministering at HP 2025 Harvest Theatre. Greater Love Choir of the First Love Center, Joyful Way Incorporated, ACP Coffee Support, Joe Metal, and your host choir, Harvest Gospel Choir. It's Good Friday, April 18th at the First Love Center, East Legon. The experience begins at 4 p.m. Ticket prices, single 100 Ghana cedis, double 180 Ghana cedis, and VIP 200 Ghana cedis. To buy your tickets now, dial *725 *1155 hash. Tickets are also available at Airport Shell, Bachelor Total, and all Harvest Chapel branches in the Accra. This is the Koinonia Edition. Media partners for Harvest Praise 2025, the Koinonia Edition are City FM and Channel 1 TV. Harvest Praise, get your praise on.
You're welcome back. You're still watching The Situation Room, coming to you live from our studio here in Crown Situation Room. We talk politics. Just a while ago, we had a discussion with the Deputy General Secretary of the NPP in charge of operations, Haruna Mohammed, on recent developments within their party. On Wednesday, the Professor Michael Oquaye Committee presented his report to the National Council and National Executive Committee of the party as far as the party's performance in the 2024 general election is or was concerned. The party or the committee has made some few recommendations, and is expected that the party will go to Congress in July to, ensure a constitutional amendment as proposed by the Professor Michael Oquaye Committee. Already, the party is seeking proposals from party members on how they believe the party can well restructure and reclaim power in the 2028 election. Away from the NPP, let's talk about the Chief Justice. As you're aware, not too long ago, there were some 3 petitions seeking the removal of the 4th most powerful person in this country. These petitions were forwarded to the President of the Republic, who also did the same to the Council of State, Council of State to also do their own, works with it. The Global Info Analytics, headed by Musa Dankwa, our very good friend, has done some works in respect of the removal of the Chief Justice from office. Fred will take us through what Musa put across, and then we will speak to Musa Dankwa himself on how this particular research was done, the duration of the period, and what observations were. Fred,
Sammy.
So basically, what are people saying or the sentiments?
Sammy, it's interesting when this report came out. Yesterday there were rumors within the corridors of power about a decision which had been taken by the Council of State with regards to the Chief Justice. As of now, there's not been any official statement from the presidency indicating that any decision has been taken. But per the rumors which were going around was that a decision had been taken, and that decision would be sent or be made known to the public any moment from now, or within some few weeks or days or hours. We are not so sure. But yes, indeed, like you mentioned, the president has forwarded the petitions to the Council of State. The Chief Justice was given an opportunity to respond to these petitions. After responding to these petitions, the Council of State was expected to look at it. We are told the Council of State is done looking at it, a decision has been made, and we will await that decision. But as we await that decision, Musa Dankwa, as usual, would go and do his polls and ask, what do people, or what do the public, what do Ghanaians think about the removal of the Chief Justice? Do they agree with it? Do they disagree with it? Let's go to the report from Musa Dankwa. He's joined us on Zoom, so he would help us as we go through this particular report. Musa, you are welcome to the show. Well, let's start with your report for methodology and your general approach to this particular report. Can you send us through this methodology and approach to this survey you did?
All right, thank you very much for having me, Fred. This is a telephone poll that was conducted between 7th April and 16th, that's yesterday. We called randomly voters across all the 16 regions. We spoke to 2,545 voters across the country. And we asked them several questions, including those specifically on the Chief Justice removal. These interviews were done over the telephone, as I mentioned earlier. And the responses from the voters is what we have presented to you yesterday and later this morning.
Okay, Musa, we are told you had about 2,545 respondents. Let's go down to the breakdown of this respondents. You started with the regional allocations. What are the allocations based on the regions and the people you spoke to?
Yes, the allocations are based on the number of voters who vote in each region. So the sample that we have, we assign the sample to ensure that when we do speak to voters, we are representing them in the magnitude of that population on the 2024 register of voters.
We realized that in the Greater Accra, you had about 543 people on this particular thing, all the way to the Savannah, which had 44 people. So it means that everybody, people were spoken to in all the regions of the country. Let's go to the demography of your report. We are told there are 57% who were male, 43% who were female. And then we go to the age groups. When we look at the age groups, we are told from 18 to 24, you had 4%. From 24 to 34, you had 28%. From 35 to 44, we had 52%. And 45 to 54, we had 15%. 55 to 64, 2%. Then 65 and above, 1%. Can you give us an understanding as to why these figures?
Well, because it's a random sampling in the field. The people we spoke to, these were their ages. And if you look at the profile, it's not much different from what we have with the EC register. We have a lot of people who are about 70% or more of voters are below the age of 44. So if you look at the sample we showed, you can see more than that.
We go to education, which is very important in this particular discussion, because, you know, there's always the argument of the fact that if you are not really well educated, you may not understand the importance and the seriousness of a removal of the Chief Justice. So you also broke the things down into education. For people who had just gone to JHS, junior high school, there were 26% of the people you spoke to. As of secondary school, senior high school had 48%. People with tertiary education background had 21%, and no formal education had 5%. So you'd see that people who have attended secondary school, senior high school, were the highest. Would you say this influenced the results in any way?
No, it tends to help understand the issue, but not necessarily influence. But in this question that we conducted, we actually gave them a preamble. So whether you have education or not, you are able to understand the issues and give us a reasonable response.
Okay. So we go back to education level. What's the difference between the education of the people and the level of the people?
No, I think it should have been it's the same thing. I mean, sometimes what we do is that we ask you, did you complete junior high school? We're not saying, did you attend Did you complete? Yes. Did you complete senior high? Yes. Did you complete tertiary? Yes.
Okay.
These are about people who have completed those educational levels.
So this one talks about people who have completed, and still on this, you realize that the secondary school, senior high school graduates were the highest. Musa, we go to religion. Why religion?
You know, in this country, we are Muslims and Christians and other religions. So once we are in the field, we do collect this data regardless of the topics we are discussing about. But you will see that we did not issue any report based on religion in this particular report because we didn't see it to be relevant.
We look at ethnic groups, which is also one thing you would never leave out of your polls. How do you interpret this particular data for us?
You know, in addition to just being something we collect every time, you are able to see whether the sample represents those of the population of the country. Accounts are normally around 45 or 47%. So this number, you have slightly more accounts than usual, which is not abnormal because of the way the samples were drawn randomly. And likewise, if you go to religion, you can see that Muslims are around 19%, which is not far from where they are nationally, and Christians around 76%. So it helps you to see whether the sample represents the demography of the country.
And the most important for me, I think, is the party affiliation. And let's look at what the figures say. Party affiliation, the people who were engaged by Musa Danquah, NPP, 32%, NDC, 43%. Musa, we have FV. What does that represent?
Floating
voters. Okay. Floating voters, 16%. Others, 2%. Not disclosed, 7%. This data we would go interpret later as and when we go through this particular report. But then viewers should take particular notice of this, where these respondents are coming from, which parties they claim to belong to. And we'll see whether that would be made any impact in the results Musa had. So let's go to after party affiliation. Now the decision itself to remove the Chief Justice. Musa, the attempt to remove the Chief Justice, we are told that 52% of your respondents are in agreement to remove the Chief Justice. Can you take us through this result?
Right. Fred, we asked them a very basic question because we know some of them may not have privy to all the information that, and some of us, we don't know why she's being removed. We know she's been petitioned, petition around her removal. So the question was put this way: there are currently 3 petitions from Ghanaians asking for the removal of the Chief Justice, but no evidence of any impropriety has been made public yet. Please indicate your level of support for the removal of the Chief Justice. So we've told them that, yes, there's a petition. We don't know for what crime. So regardless of whatever she's been accused of, do you support the process to remove her? Now, 52% of the respondents say they support the removal, even without seeing any evidence against her. 20% oppose to the process of removing her without seeing any evidence. 18% were neutral about that process. And then 10% didn't have an opinion. So broadly, without seeing any evidence, majority of Ghanaian voters said she should be removed. Now, what we did also is to go to the next step to see whether people will change their positions if there is evidence for and against it. So we asked them subsequent questions. For those who said they don't support the removal, or they don't have opinion, or they are neutral, we asked them that if it is established that the Chief Justice has broken the law, please indicate your level of support for her removal. This question was answered by those who said they don't support her removal, or they didn't have an opinion, or they were neutral. Now, when we did ask them this question as a follow-up, then you have a different story. At this point, among those people, 30% said they support the removal, haven't seen the evidence. If they see the evidence and it's compelling, they will support her removal. But 35% are still saying no, regardless of the evidence that may be adduced against her. They don't support her removal. They oppose it. At this situation, or at this point, you have 19% saying they are still neutral about her removal, and 16% do not have an opinion.
So, Musa, to be very clear, out of the 20% which oppose or who oppose this particular removal of the CJ, 30% of them told you that if there should be reasons given and these reasons are tangible, they would support the removal. Is that what it's saying?
No, it's not just, it is the 20% plus the 18% and then 10%. So nearly the 48%.
The 48%.
Yes.
Okay. So let's go on. You tried to give a breakdown of the regions and what they said. Can you take us through each region and what they said?
Let's take Ahafo. Those who have no opinion are higher than those with opinion. But those who oppose, 20%, and those who support, 20%. So in that region, clearly there's no support. Division is a score draw there. But in the Ashanti region, 37% support her removal, whereas 32 do not support. So majority of 5% support in Ashanti region. In the Bono East region, 82% support, but 13% oppose it. In the Bono East, 72 support and 20 oppose. In the Central region, 51 support and 16 oppose. In the Eastern region, 48 support, 34 oppose. In the Greater Accra region, 58 support, while 16 oppose. In the Northern region or the East region, 39 support and 16 oppose. In the Northern region, 45 support and 6 oppose. In OT, 70% support, 30% oppose. In Savannah, 66% support and 10% oppose. In the Upper East region, 21% support and 12% opposed. But majority of them are neutral in the Upper East region. In the Upper West region, 49% support, 13 opposed. Volta region, 76% support and 17 opposed. Western region, 34 support, 15 opposed. And in the Western North, 82 support, 7% oppose it.
Oh, interesting. So it means that in the Western North region, it has the highest percentage of people who are supporting it. And I was curious about the Central region where she comes from.
Yeah.
51% support her removal, while 16 oppose it. That's quite interesting.
Yes.
And I think that
It's very interesting.
The Ashanti region leads with the number of people who oppose her removal, if you look at the numbers.
No, in the Ashanti region, it's much less because 37 support and 32 oppose. So a margin of 5%. Not much. I was expecting Ashanti region to oppose by majority.
Okay.
Surprisingly, by majority, it supported.
That's interesting. We go to the attempt to remove the Chief Justice from office. Do you support it? This is also back to your the level of education
level, yeah.
The level of education. Yes. And it gives a breakdown as to what the support is based on the level of education. Senior high school, 57% of them support, 17% of them oppose, 16% are neutral, 10% do not have an opinion. That's for the junior high school. For the senior high school, 50% support it, 21% oppose, 20% are neutral, 9% do not have an opinion. Then we go to tertiary. The tertiary institutions, 54% of them support the removal, 18% do not support it, 18% are neutral, 10% have no opinion. Then we come to no education. 37% of them do support it, 21% do not, 12% are neutral, and 30% do not have an opinion. It's interesting for me, the last part of it, the no education people.
Yes. Yes.
How do you interpret that?
And you know, it means that those who have education, who can understand the issues, probably are in favor of the removal. And those who may not have a complex understanding of the issue probably are taking it a bit cautious. That's why you see among those without formal education, the approval for removal is very low.
But isn't it interesting, Sami, looking at the fact that people who have been educated and have not seen the report, right, and do not know the details of the report, are supporting the removal.
Yeah.
And those who have not been educated and who have not seen the report are actually opposing and do not support the removal. It's quite interesting.
Quite interesting.
That dynamic.
It goes to maybe confirm what they've heard. They've heard people talk about it. So
Absolutely.
they are moved.
Absolutely.
So they are moved by what people have told them or what they've heard in the media space. So that goes on to confirm the decision they are taking.
Interesting. Musa, you are trying to tell us, you are trying to make a comment on that.
Yes, what I would say is that because there's no evidence so far against it, this perception may have been grounded by previous perception about the Chief Justice herself and the Supreme Court. Remember, in recent polls that was done, the judiciary was third in terms of the most corrupt public institution. And then also in 2023, there was a poll that suggested that the Supreme Court is not trusted by Ghanaian voters. So all this perception, without seeing any evidence, they have been shaped by this perception.
Musa, Musa, I have a question. So I'll go back to the dashboard and then I'll take you back. I'll take you back to where Fred was when it comes to the party affiliation. Musa, we had quite a number of people, NDC supporters. Fred, take me back to. So the party affiliation, Musa, so 43% of the respondents who are NDC members, support the removal or party affiliation or sort of. But already.
So, okay, let me explain that.
Okay. Because I'm asking this question before you explain. Already there's a perception that the NDC is not in the is not supporting the CJ, and then there's always an attempt by the NDC to get her removed. And so if NDC affiliation of 43% comes in the air, it goes to confirm that the NDC wants to push the lady away or the Chief Justice. That's I want you to explain that part.
I think Musa was coming to that point where the party affiliation comes in, where he gives a better breakdown as to who supports.
But before we go to that, let me explain that party affiliation at the earlier stage of the presentation.
Yeah.
Before the 2024 elections, people who say they were NPP were majority in this country, around 36%, 37%. And NDC were 33%. And floating voters around 15, 20%. But since the election, most Ghanaians have moved away from NPP, from the survey we have done. So currently, majority of Ghanaian voters call themselves or are more associated with NDC than NPP. So the sample you have seen is based on the records we have. So if you interview Ghanaians today, about 42% will say they are NDC, 32% will be NPP, and floating voters will be around 15%. So this is the base on which the samples were kind of analyzed.
Okay.
Then when you come to the support, that's where you see the party partisanship within the support. Now, for those who are NPP, 46% of NPP supporters oppose the move. 16% support the move. 26% were neutral, and 13% did not have an opinion. But when you come to NDC, 83% of NDC sympathizers want her removed. 3% are oppose it, 7% were neutral, and 7% have no opinion. Among floating voters, 46% support it, 13% oppose it, 26% have are neutral, and 15% did not have an opinion. For those who support other parties, 37% support her removal, 9% oppose it, but 43% said they were neutral, and 11% have no opinion. When you look at those who don't disclose their party affiliation, 34% support her removal compared to 18% who oppose it, and 29% are neutral, with 19% saying they have no opinion. So you can see that whereas among NDC and floating voters, there are clear support for her removal. And among MPP, they are a bit all over the place.
Interesting, Musa. So can we say that based on this, on public opinion, it's basically or largely dependent on which party they belong to?
Yes, it's party lines. And so the most important guide is to look at the views of the floating voters who are neither MPP nor NDC. And even among them, nearly 50% want to remove.
Thank you so much, Musa. That's quite an interesting thing, how you've been able to break down public opinion as to whether the CJ should be removed or not removed. It's quite interesting, Sami.
Very.
Look at the data, you look at the affiliations of the people from education to religion to party.
Yeah.
And when you break it down, you realize that our country still is at a point
it's still
where
divided.
the NDC and the NPP
still dominate everything.
Will take a stance as to what happens. For me, with regards to the removal of the Chief Justice, I believe that the process has to be respected. Whoever would have to be engaged in this process will respect the law, and decisions which will be taken would not be based on party decisions or party lines, but will be based on the evidence, the true evidence which is presented to the committee, and not what one particular party feels or what the other party decides or feels also, Sami.
Definitely. We all hope that the Council of State will do what is right according to law. And if the president will recommend whatever decision that the Council of State will ask him to, is best for this country. We're just hoping for the best, that's all. We're just hoping for the best. It's been another exciting edition of the Situation Room that came to you live from our studio here in Accra. Musa, thank you very much. Musa Danko has always been with us when it comes to issues like this. And what will we say? So we'll come your way again next week.
As you always say.
May the good Lord be with us all.